With the BBC News at 10, I'm Anna Preston. The first images of Nicola Bulley on the day she went missing while walking her dog have been shared with the BBC by one of her friends. The 45-year-old was last seen walking next to the River Wyre in St Michael's-on-Wyre in Lancashire. It's been confirmed Nicola's family has agreed to a private underwater search company joining the operation tomorrow. Danny Savage reports.
The images first obtained by the BBC show Nicola Bulley loading up her car for the school run. They were taken from a CCTV camera on the outside of her family home, less than an hour before she vanished. They show her wearing a three-quarter length coat, dark-coloured jeans, long walking socks and ankle-length green wellies. Police believe she accidentally fell in the River Wyre, but no evidence of a fall and no trace of Nicola Bulley have yet been found.
The government and health unions have clashed on the eve of some of the biggest NHS strikes over pay yet. Nurses and ambulance workers are walking out tomorrow in England. In Wales, ambulance staff represented by the Unite union will also take action. Unions demanding Rishi Sunak come to the table to discuss pay. The government insists its £1,400 rise for NHS workers this year is fair. Well, Mark Smith from Herefordshire is a paramedic with West Midlands Ambulance Service. He says the pressures in the job have become unbearable, particularly when patients have to wait outside hospitals in ambulances.
All they can do is sit there or lie there in the ambulance in pain and suffering, and there is literally nothing you can do. They look at you with their eyes and pleadingly. You're just so frustrated. It's heartbreaking. This is not what I signed up for.
Iran's state media says the country's supreme leader has pardoned thousands of people who were involved in recent protests. The demonstrations were sparked by the death of a young woman in police custody. Beyoncé leads nominations for tonight's Grammys. She's 4 Grammys away from having the most wins ever. Harry Styles and Adele also have nominations. The ceremony in Los Angeles will celebrate 50 years of hip-hop. Jem Aswad from Variety magazine says it's the most important date in the music calendar.
There's only one Grammy Awards. It is the absolute peak of achievement in the music world. Award shows in general have lost a lot of their luster with the decline of network television, but it's, to a musician, it's still the ultimate thing.
Harry Kane became Tottenham's all-time record scorer, leading his team to a 1-0 win against Manchester City. He surpassed Jimmy Greaves with his 267th goal for the club. And stargazers across the UK will get a chance to see the year's second full moon tonight, known as the snow moon. But you're being warned to wrap up as a 3-day cold snap will start this evening. It's 3 minutes past 10.
We are here, you are there, with Allan Beswick.
Good evening. How are you?
BBC Radio Manchester.
My name is Allan Beswick, and this is the Allan Beswick Late Night Phone-In. And yeah, it's all right, isn't it? Sunday, first one of the week, or the last one of the week. It's hard to, it depends when you start your week, doesn't it, really? Monday to Sunday, that's one way of starting it, and it would be the last. Or not, as the case may be. I don't care. You start your week in any way you like. But we're here until 1 o'clock in the morning, and the telephone number is 0800 218 2255. And as I say, twice a week at least, you can talk about anything you wish to. It's dead easy. And tonight we have Talent, who's sort of producing. Yeah, well, I say sort of. We can't overstate it. We've got Kieran, who's organising the studio and making sure that goes according to plan. Of course, you've also got me, who's the one that sits here to chat with you for just under 3 hours. On 0800 218 2255. People get grumpy about this, which is what I like most about it, but people get grumpy because we don't do texts and we don't do emails. We don't really do letters. It's a phone-in. So we just, bizarrely, do the phone. I know other phone-ins on the BBC, whether it's local radio, national, and all the other independents, they all do texts as well. Oh, such and such a body's texted and says this. Well, we can't be doing with that. It's a phone-in. So you phone in, or you don't get on. That's the gist of it. Of course, you're fully entitled to just listen without phoning in. No, in fact, that's what I suspect most people do, and quite frankly, it's hard to blame them. Any road, if you want to join us, let's get started. The press have finally, I did promise you they would, the press have finally located the woman who says that she's the one that took Prince Harry's virginity in a field. I remember saying. She didn't take it like most young men of his age. He was glad enough to give it away, as it were. She's a digger driver called Sasha, who will almost certainly be forever known as Sasha the Shagger. Anyway, good luck to the woman, I say, and I hope she stung the Daily Mail or the Mail on Sunday for thousands and thousands and thousands for her story. And I also hope that the story's true. After the release of the reptile Gary Glitter, my apologies to reptiles, I was asked last night if I'd want him living next door to me. Obviously, I wouldn't. Why? Well, for lots of reasons, really, not the least of which is the dozens of press cluttering up the footpath outside my neighbour's house. Would be an awful lot less pleasant, wouldn't it, really? I mean, you just wouldn't want that, would you? You don't want all them out there. But then, I wouldn't want the lawless cretins that tried to break into his bail hostile to give him a warm welcome to the area as my neighbours either. You see, I prefer to spend time, if I must, with people who aren't eager to get revenge, eager to do harm. Even the kind of harm Gary Glitter did. Twitter banned an ornithologist for using the word woodcock. Ornithologists, they're bird experts. He wrote a piece about a woodcock, and so they banned him because the word cock, although the word wood and cock together can be, well, you can get a stiff sentence for that. But after all that picky-packy-fanky, they've just let Donald Trump back into the idiot's highway. So it's just crazy. And then we've got the British gas defence. We mentioned them last night. Their defence now is, not us, Gov. It was them stinking debt collectors. We're going to have a word with them. This is all about breaking into it's always poor people's homes to install money-grabbing prepayment meters. It wasn't us, Gov. Looks a bit shaky this week because one newspaper today reports that, well, British Gas were warned about its behaviour by Ofcom 5 years ago. What have they done? Who knows? But there you go. If you want to join us, that is fine. 0800 218 2255. And Liz Truss is out and about again. She's out of hiding. Still saying it wasn't her fault, pins the blame on those who should have stopped her. I don't know the woman from Adam, I've never met her, but from all I've read in the papers about stopping her, it would have taken rather more than the brain-dead party members who chose her, wouldn't it, really? But there you are, never mind. Oh, we're not playing that, that's far too noisy. Don't want that, get rid of that. No, yeah. Let's play this instead. Your love keeps lifting in. To all intents and purposes, you can talk about anything, but there will be lots and lots of people who haven't yet watched the thing. You know, the police thing in Ebden. I haven't watched it, but you don't have to care about that. But there will be lots listening who haven't, for some reason, for whatever reason. And it might be nice if we don't do a spoiler. Eh? Talk about the series by all means, but, you know, I can't stop you. If you come on and do a spoiler, then it's done. There's nothing I can do to prevent it. I can only ask you, out of courtesy for others, to not tell the ending to those who haven't yet seen it. And I do admit that includes me, but I'm not playing on my behalf. But on all those other many thousands, I suspect it's going to be one of the biggest denouements on television for donkey's years. Any road up. 0800 218 2255 to join us. We're here till 1 o'clock. Apart from the request for limitation I've just mentioned. We're here till 1 o'clock and you can talk about absolutely anything. 0800 218 2255. Let us begin. Aldo, Ray.
Hi, Alan. Yeah, I'd like to talk about the lack of diversity in the police in the UK. I've watched like police programs, like traffic cops and police interceptors in Britain, and they lack like that diversity. Like they don't have Black British or British Asian. It seems like the American police have got diversity in the police in America. So I don't know if you can help me on that one.
Well, there's nothing I can do to help you. I think you're probably correct. Indeed, a number of chief police officers have said exactly the thing, and that I think they're in a bind really, because they want, the bosses want more people of colour, more diversity in their ranks, but because it looks like white man's game, a lot of people of colour don't want to join. So it's a sort of almost a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's really difficult.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like, it doesn't look like we're being open-minded, because we're supposed to be a very tolerant society in Britain, but we're lacking in that diverse in a bit of the police a little bit.
Yeah, but you can't force people. You can't go onto the streets and say, you look as though you're not white, so you join in the police tomorrow. The people have got to volunteer to join the police, and it's hard to prove to would-be ethnic minorities to join the police when the police is sat there with a white face. And they say, well, I'm not joining, it's not for me. And when the police appear to have been guilty in the past, who knows about the present day, we'll only find that out a couple of years down the road when they start admitting it. But the police have not been very good at being fair with people of colour. So people of colour say, they don't want us, and we don't want them. So that's the difficulty. It's breaking that sort of ceiling, that prevention, the emotional prevention within the individual, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it is cool. Like, people have said to me, the reason why they don't have ethnic minorities in the police is because they say there's more whites in Britain than the demographic people. But I don't think that's true.
I've heard that argument on here. I've never heard senior police officers saying that. Oh, no, we don't want them because we only need, I don't know what the percentage is, let's invent one. We only need 8% because there's only 8% in our society. The police don't say that.
No, I know the police don't say that, but I know the police don't say that, but it's other people that say that.
Yeah, absolutely. But they're remarking on what they observe, which is perfectly fine. What would you do, Ray, to encourage people from ethnic minorities to think of the police as a career? What would you do?
I would say it's a good opportunity. You can make it into the police. I think you can do it because it shows that we're being more tolerant.
But
we can how do you stamp it? We can.
Yeah, how do you get those people to want to do it, though? How do you get people from Asian backgrounds, Afro-Caribbean backgrounds and all those sorts of jargon that we use? How do you get them, a young man or woman of the right age and the right sort of style of person, to say, yeah, I want to be a copper?
But you can say to them, if there's any racism in the police force, we can stamp it out, and then those people will be sacked if they be racist towards an ethnic minority in the police.
It would be nice, wouldn't it?
That's what I would do personally.
Yeah. Well, that might work. We've already got a shortage of coppers. I suspect sacking coppers who show to be racist is easy enough, but it's kind of tricky.
Yeah, I see what you mean, but
it's good that people are thinking about it anyway. We're a long way further forward than we were years ago.
yeah, I mean, I'll say one thing is that, because, when people say, there's more white people in Britain, I always say, I think white people are, a minority because, they did a census. You had, London, Birmingham, Manchester and Leicester. They're all a minority, so you'd think there would be ethnic minority in the police.
Well, I challenge that claim. I suspect it's the case that throughout the United Kingdom, in most places, the indigenous white, is the major population. I read something the other day which I found bizarre in the extreme, and that was I heard, I didn't read it, I heard it, somebody say, what is the most common spoken foreign language in Bradford? Bradford, of course, got a massive Asian population. What's the most common foreign language spoken in Bradford, would you think?
I said it was Pakistan.
Yeah, of course you would. Polish.
Oh, is it? I didn't know that.
Neither did I.
So is there more Polish people then?
No, I mean it's a trick of numbers. In truth, I was talking with Talat, our producer, about it, and he made the point, given that he speaks about 11 languages, he made the point that, of course, if they're counting the language rather than the colour of the face of the person, then there are lots of different Asian languages. So if you say that, we'll have the idea that people are speaking Polish more than they're speaking Urdu, for example, well, that's fine. But then, if you said Asian languages rather than foreign languages, then clearly the Asian community would win. But it is interesting. So it's not always plain sailing with statistics, but it's good to know that you care, eh? Good to talk to you, mate. Have a good night. Cheers. How do Keith?
Hello. Right, blue plaque. Usually you put a blue plaque up.
Go on, I know this one. It's brilliant. Go on.
Right. Well, it's where Rishi Sunak got done for not wearing a seatbelt.
That's right. Somebody's put one on a lamppost, hasn't it? Do you know what it says on it?
No, not offhand.
It says
Apart
something
from
like
the fact he got done.
it says something like this is the place where Rishi Sunak was spotted in a car without a seatbelt on such and such a date. I think it's absolutely brilliant. I do hope the council leave it there. Because it's very funny.
Definitely, yeah, I think it's a good laugh.
Oh, it is. Not for him, obviously, but who cares? He shouldn't have done
it. Right, next bit. If I said boat, you would think a backside, wouldn't you?
No, I'm starving. I'd think of a sandwich.
Oh, no, that sort of boat. Anyhow, it's actually a measurement for a cask of wine.
Oh, yeah, you get a wine boat, yeah.
Right, last one tonight. Elephant poo at Longleat, from the elephants, obviously, is being turned into paper at Frogmore Paper Mill in Hertfordshire.
Good Lord. What sort of paper? Toilet paper, perhaps?
I wouldn't like to think.
No, but given that elephants are vegetarian, it's going to be all fibre, isn't it? There's going to be a lot of fibre in it.
Yeah.
That's what they make paper out of.
Yeah. Right, that's been all tonight.
At Chester Zoo, they used to sell boxes of elephant poo.
Oh, remember you saying a few years ago that.
I know. I bought some. It stank. Have a good night. How do Eileen?
Hiya, Alan.
Oh, yeah.
I want to talk about corruption in authority, and even the World Wide Web knows when to take things out and put things back in and manipulate things, and that's just Wiki always gets the blame for that, but that's not true. It happens because people own satellites, and basically I wanted to just that fella one bit back before. Talking about the police, I've met loads of Asian police and black police, and believe me, there's just as many corrupt Asian and black as there is white. Noyes said, and he was a gangster, there's 1 in 6 police that are bent. And I believe that. I believe that because it goes right across authority. Even the courts are not given a fair deal anymore. They are covering up things to agenda their own, way of perpetuating myths, Alan. I think basically it's all to do. Even the Gulf War was done behind people's backs. And I've looked up on the web about it.
Hang on a minute. When you say the Gulf War was done behind people's backs, I watched it on the telly. It's not hiding it very well.
When they set it off in motion, which was it was done on the 17th of March, wasn't it?
And it was discussed on every news programme in the country. It was discussed in every newspaper in the country. It was discussed on phone-ins, I seem to recall awfully well, discussing it long and hard. So to say that it was done in secret is balderdash.
Alan, can you answer me this then? He's just been given a knighthood, Blair, hasn't he? Which parents of dead soldiers have rejected, and the will of the people went against.
Well, Eileen, the fact that the former Prime Minister has given a knighthood, which incidentally nearly every former Prime Minister gets, but the fact that the former Prime Minister was given a knighthood doesn't indicate that when he was in charge and took our country into the Gulf War, he was being corrupt, or it was a corrupt decision. You get a knighthood for sitting in the chair. I mean, even that woman that did it for a quarter of an hour, Liz Truss, she'll probably end up with some kind of gong for being the former Prime Minister. She's got the pension as well. I'm sorry, but the former Prime Minister getting a knighthood is a routine.
Well, can I just say this? You're saying it was all publicised in the news and everything. So why did they only mention 420 Brits that were killed? When I was counting as the war was going on, I got up to about 698 and stopped counting. And it went on a lot longer than that. It went over to 1,000. So it must have been 1,000.
Assuming your figures are correct, I wasn't counting with you or against you, but assuming your figures are correct, how does that indicate corruption?
Well, you seem to say that it was all out in the open when it was going down.
You came on to tell us about corruption in authority. You chose as your sort of the centre of your argument that the Gulf War was corrupt and done in secret. We've knocked down now that it wasn't done in secret, and now you're saying that more Brits were killed than the government have admitted. So I'm asking you, how does that stand up your argument about corruption? That's all I'm asking.
Okay, well, how does the fact that there was a proclamation...
No, you can't. You're right. You don't really make on this. Eileen. Good night. We can do it my way, or we can not do it. Which do you want? I don't care either way. But you don't answer. You don't make progress on this programme by answering a question with a question. Good night. How do, Malcolm?
How do? Yes. I mean, just passing a mild comment on your previous discussion. The fact that the disgraced former Prime Minister who was convicted in the Malaysian Tribunal of War Crimes got a knighthood doesn't really count for very much, because there's another famous person who used to work for the BBC who also got a knighthood. Savile, he got one too, so I'm not impressed by Blair's knighthood. But moving on from that, I said I was going to talk about America's fusion experiment, and I think that they were claiming that they'd achieved break-even, and I personally question the significance of what they claim was a huge discovery in plasma physics research, having done plasma physics research myself. The point is that break-even is this sort of holy grail, whereby you get the same amount of energy out from the fusion experiment as the amount that you've put in. And they claim they've achieved it, but I'm a doubter, because it's...
Have you read the papers? I don't mean the newspapers, I mean the published papers.
No, but...
Right. Okay,
but I've discussed it with a PhD physics recently, from Bristol.
But you've not read...
Man.
Had that person read the papers?
I'm not particularly knowledgeable on whether
So
it
you've
has or not.
so you're a former or even a current physics expert. You discussed it with another physics expert, and not one of you have read the document.
I don't know whether he has or not, but I'm going to put the reason why I think that it's dodgy there.
Okay. Well, don't cite anyone else to support your position unless you can tell me that they have researched it, or whether they're just doing what you're doing and drawing on your experience, which is not a bad thing.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Well, you see, the Lawson criteria, I'll just throw that in, is where you've got to the conditions where you achieve fusion. That is a very high temperature, a very high plasma density, and some other thing, whatever it is, I forget. Now, plasma pressure, density and temperature, and that's when you get fusion. Now, that was achieved at JET, Joint European Tourist, where I visited Abingdon in Oxford, first in something like 1994.
So your history is marvellous. Irrelevant. Tell me why you think they have not achieved break-even. Energy in equals energy out.
Because they failed to take into account the energy used to make the tritium, the energy used to make the equipment, the energy used to set up the experiment, etc., etc. So yes, maybe in real time, at the time the experiment is happening, they may just about have got to break even.
You're the one with the experience in this, not I. So just answer me yes or no. Is it usual that when you do an experiment, you take into account, for example, the cost of the test tubes, the bus fares of the assistants coming in to help you, and indeed every single possible penny you can lay towards it, or indeed every piece of energy? I mean, do you have to take... I'm just asking because I don't know. Do you have to, for example, take into consideration the energy used in making the floor, the energy used in building the building, the energy used in the desks at which people work? At what level, at what point do you stop counting the previously used energy?
It depends on what you... This is what my friend and myself were saying, that it depends...
I don't care about your friend, we've established that. Well, it does depend where you're drawing the line. Are you saying that they are drawing it in a place which would not normally be the place where the line was drawn? It's a yes-no question, with or without your friend.
Yes, I am saying that, yeah.
That's simple enough. Thank you, I'm glad you told us. How do Tony?
Hi, Alan, you okay?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good. You were talking that word, woodcock.
Woodcock, yes.
Was it? Did you say it was a bird or something?
It is indeed a bird.
Word. Sorry?
It's a bird, yes.
Right. So what's the problem with using the word?
You'd have to ask Twitter. They were the ones that banned it. The ornithologist in question didn't think there was anything wrong with it, and they did. And his presumption is that they took his tweet down because it contained the word cock. So everyone that wants to tell a story of a film they've just watched on the telly where a man said, I watched him cock his gun, that would have been taken down as well. Or if he was very, very happy and said he's cock a hoop, that would have been taken down.
I think it might upset Giuseppe and Pinocchio.
Well, yeah, it might do, but Pinocchio was more worried about his nose than any other part of his anatomy.
Well, if it was as long as his nose, it'd have been all right, wouldn't it?
I've no idea. But it was bizarre, and the ornithologist said the same thing, that he thought it was utterly bizarre that the word woodcock, or his tweet, was taken down because of woodcock. You've got all sorts of ridiculous, disgusting, puerile garbage going on there, and they choose to take down the word woodcock.
Ridiculous.
Indeed.
Can I one more point, Alan?
Please do, yeah.
There's 400 hotels crammed with asylum seekers at the moment, and they're complaining about the food.
Yeah.
What do you say to that?
You said you were going to tell me what you said.
Well, I'm just asking you, they're complaining about the food. What would you say to them?
I wouldn't say anything. I'd say nothing. I don't have any contact with
Get
them.
on with it. Get on with it, or go back to...
I said I wouldn't say... I said I wouldn't say anything, so please don't put words in my mouth. I've told you my answer. Now you tell me what you would say.
Get on with it. Or
Okay.
go back.
Okay.
Where you like, what you like. Or
Right.
is it they want to go to Michelin star restaurants that Britain will probably do anyway, in the end. Where do you go with it?
I don't go anywhere with it.
So we're stuck here. They're complaining about the food they're given, but we put them up in hotels and all that.
Right.
So what is it they want now?
I don't know. Better food. If they're complaining about the food, I think the simple answer to your question is they want better food.
Oh, good. Yeah, so let's send them to Michelin stars now, shall we?
Well, maybe not that much better. Well, I don't know what they're serving them. They might be serving them pig swill leftovers. I don't know. Do you?
Well, they're serving them better stuff than our kids are getting.
How do you know that?
To start, food banks and all
how
that
do
in Britain.
Well, I'm sure the food banks give quite good food. I don't know. Not been to one as a customer. What are you suggesting? That asylum seekers are here and therefore should be given what to eat? Rubbish? Garbage?
About the food.
Well, they're complaining, and they're complaining because they don't think it's good enough. You're saying that they should just eat it and shut up. And I'm saying to you, how bad does the food have to get before your position of eat it and shut up ceases to be correct? I don't know the answer, do you?
I know they've got a gift.
Well, they may well have a gift, but let me try the question again, see if you can give a go at the answer. You say you are less than pleased that asylum seekers who have been put up in hotels are complaining at the food they're provided with. And I'm saying to you, what if that food is horrible? Should they just eat it and shut up, or should they say, the food's not good enough, I'm afraid? What should they do? Ring me back if you find an answer. How do Lindsay?
Good evening. I sound like they're being put up in hotels, 5-star hotels. I sound like I'm obsessed with him. Jeremy Kyle was going mad about it on Thursday.
I don't care about Jeremy Kyle. I don't care if he's been given horrible food.
Yeah.
So what's your point of view?
I haven't really got one, to be honest with you. It's just with that.
Ring us back if one crops up. How do Michelle?
Hi, Alan. I'd like to talk about dangerous dogs and that they should change the rules of being an owner of the dog with the licence and stuff like that. I just wanted to know your opinion. I know you're not a fan of dogs, but still.
I'd bullet the lot, to be honest, but never mind. I mean, I don't know anyone that thinks we should have dangerous dogs. The difficulty is, what is a dangerous dog? Now, I believe every dog is dangerous. I actually know dog trainers who say the same thing. So we come down to, what do you think the rules should be?
Well, I think that all dogs should have a licence, all dog owners, and insurance, and all dogs should be muzzled. Never mind how friendly they are or not, in public, they should all be muzzled. Right. I'm a dog owner myself, and I'll be quite happy to muzzle mine, and he's friendly.
When you say...
But you never know with a dog when it would turn or what would make it turn.
So when you say all dogs should be muzzled in public, what about that horrible case last week when...
I know, about the 4-year-old.
The child was at home, it was the family dog.
Well, you shouldn't have a kid near a dog unattended anyway.
Indeed, no.
I mean, they're an unpredictable. All animals are unpredictable. You know, cats are unpredictable. You know, so
there aren't many.
I mean, we don't know the circumstances of the child.
No, we
dog,
don't. There aren't many cats that have ripped a child to death. I can't remember the last time I read one. But if you're saying they should be muzzled in public, because that obviously protects the public, and that's fine. What do you say about dogs, domestic dogs in the domestic situation in their home?
Well, they should all be supervised. I wouldn't leave my dog unattended with my grandkids. And I know my dog's all right, but I still wouldn't leave him with my grandkids.
Okay.
Because you never know, do you? And
well, no.
Cats can be dangerous. I was mauled by a cat when I was 7 years old, and it ripped my face to pieces. I've been a victim of a cat.
Mm.
So I know that one. So I'll debate that. And my other thing was Gary Glitter.
Mm-hmm.
Why has he been allowed out and he hasn't finished the time?
Well, he's finished the time in accordance with the sentencing policy laid down by the government.
So where is he going to live now?
Well, at the moment, he's living in a bail hostel. There will be a length of time where he's required to do so, and after that, he will be an entirely free person. There may be another few steps, but the ultimate goal is for him to be an entirely free person living in his home, wherever that might be.
Amongst people, children, and are they going to tag him and things like that? They can keep an eye on him.
Well, there may be a process whereby he's currently in a bail hostel. He's probably already tagged in relation to that. Then at some point they'll take the next step and the next step until he is, to all intents and purposes, a free person. Because that's what happens when you go to jail. Eventually you come out.
Well, personally, I don't think them type of people should be allowed out, personally.
So for sexually interfering with a child, that, as far as you're concerned, should be a true life sentence. You're sentenced until death.
Well, you should stay there or somewhere away from children, that you can't be near children under any circumstances.
Well, that's very difficult in our society. I mean, if you want to go to the cinema, then there are going to be people en route or even at the cinema who are not, 30 years of age or what have you. So if you're saying...
well, maybe he should be... if he goes to places like that, he should have people with him, security ways, that he cannot be tempted in that sort of way.
So is this for every prisoner?
I know it's difficult for you to understand, but
no, I have no difficulty.
Where I'm coming from.
I thank you for the offence, but I have no difficulty in understanding. What I'm trying to do is to find out. Well, for one thing, if every paedophile released from prison is going to have a guard with them for the rest of their lives, that's about £60,000 a year per person. Are you up for that on tax?
Yeah.
You up for it?
I would be. I'm a victim of a paedophile, so I understand all about it. So
I get that. You understand about the offence, but like every offence, people serve the sentence that the government sets down, and then they are released. They're released when part of their sentence is done in certain circumstances where they are supposedly supervised. And despite your experience, which must have been absolutely horrendous, are you actually saying that such a person should be jailed for the rest of their natural life?
Well, I am. Well, yeah, but I am trying to be polite on radio.
Don't feel... I mean, as long as you don't use filthy language, you don't have to be polite on here, and you certainly don't have to be polite to Gary Glitter.
If I just go... I know Jimmy Soul's dead now, but they should... Not what I would have done with them, but there you go. I mean, I was a kid in care who was abused by this type of person, and from a very young age. And I just think they're just scrotes, little maggots, and no, I ain't got time for them.
Well, you'll get no argument from me. I think the offence of harming a child, sexually or just physically, or even emotionally, is an outrageous thing for any human being to do, for whatever reason. And for sexual gratification, it's even worse. But we have a society.
I mean, the damage they do, the damage that they do, they don't understand it. It scars the person for the rest of their lives. And they have flashbacks and all this, that and the other. But he doesn't have that flashback. But that to the damage he's done to that person, that child, that he's done.
Let me tell you, I don't do personal much, but let me tell you a personal story. I had an older brother. I never knew him. I was too young. I was a babe in arms. And he was killed by a vehicle. He was run over by a vehicle. My mother could never bring herself to say hello to the driver, who she knew. And it wasn't the driver's fault. For years I thought it was. It wasn't. Now, my mother was scarred by that for the rest of her days. She still suffered it until the second she died. So, what should happen to the driver? Because he's living with it.
Yeah, I know he's living with it. He's obviously have nightmares and things like that. But your mum obviously did the punishment by not speaking to him and never forgiving him. So.
But he never did anything wrong in that case. It's not a good example. What I'm saying to you is when people are victims of crime and the one you suffered is possibly the worst below murder, as it were. Some might say it's even worse than murder because you have to live with it forever. But whatever happens to your assailant, you will never lose that memory.
Exactly. Well, luckily he's died.
Well, okay, but and yet you're still telling me.
There's still the memories there, and the.
But that's the point I'm making. There is nothing we can do to your assailant or any other such assailant, including the dreadful, filthy Gary Glitter. There's nothing we can do to them that will do anything much for the victim. Can't be done.
Yeah, but I don't think. I know I might be wrong. I don't think that people like Gary Glitter have remorse to what they do.
Well, whether they do...
Because if they did, they wouldn't keep doing it.
Well, whether they do or whether they don't, in fact, doesn't change. Even if he threw himself down in front of the altar every day and pleaded for forgiveness, the people he hurt will be no less hurt.
I mean, even though it's dead, you don't forgive them. You just never forgive them.
Exactly. So, once we've established that there was nothing we can do to that person to ease your pain, or the pain of that person's victim, we then have to think about, okay, so what do we do with the person? What do we do with them? Do we lock them up forever, or do we do something else?
Well, I know what 2 bricks could do.
Well, indeed, and provided somebody said, does it hurt? And they said, providing you keep the thumbs
We'll
up.
soon find out.
See, I understand your position entirely, and quite frankly, I don't know what I would do if it was me or one of mine, but it wouldn't be easy, that's for sure. Have a good night. How do, George?
Hello, Alan. I'd like to speak about, I've got 2 things to speak about, but the first one's about this Putin and the Sunak, our Prime Minister. I don't think there's much difference in the 2 of them, because he's arming Ukraine, Putin, but this Prime Minister we've got is arming all the bloody people of England with these strikes and that. Because he'll have to give in the end. He's got to give in the end, and I can't see what he's going to gain by it.
Okay. And what was your other point?
Pardon?
What was your other point? You said there were 2 things.
I think Putin, Sunak, what do they call him? The Prime Minister.
The Prime Minister of Sunak. His name is Sunak.
That's his. Yeah.
I know.
I'm sorry about that.
It's all right, don't worry.
Yeah, but I mean, all these people who's out of work and because over the strikes and all this, I think it's all wrong that this man is doing what he's doing. I mean, that's why he won't call an election, because he knows he'll get beat. The Labour Party will walk it.
It's an interesting theory that the Labour Party would walk it. You never know. General elections are rarely predicted accurately, so nobody knows. We don't know what they would offer.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, Alan. I've got one more problem, a very short one it is. It's about, you were talking about cats. Well, my friend, about 8 years ago, he was getting on, and he got scratched by a cat, and he died of blood poison.
Right.
So they say that cats can't do much, but I like cats myself, but it just he just died through it. That's what he died of.
Right.
Through the cat.
But he wasn't shredded and his throat ripped out. He just had a scratch.
That's right.
Which he clearly didn't treat properly.
Yeah, most probably, yeah. That's what happened, Alan.
Well, I'm not denying it. I'm not challenging it. You know the story. I don't. It's a strange comparison with a dog that rips the throats out of a 4-year-old kid. But, you know, we all suffer in our own way. Do have a good night. How do, Lenny?
Good evening, Alan.
Good evening, Lenny.
I was when you were talking about Twitter, and I was just thinking, does that mean Matt Hancock is barred from there?
For the same reason. Oh, that would be good, wouldn't it? Matt, you can't be on Why because your name's Cock.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be nice. I wish I'd thought of that.
Because I don't think I'll put this as politely as I can.
All right.
Like offending people, but what it is, I think he's ideally named. Because he spends the majority of his time, and that gives you his mentality.
Right. Well, you know, lots would agree with you. And as far as I understand it, he's not going to risk finding out how much people support him at the next election. Apparently, he's not going to stand. Which is another word you shouldn't use next to the word cock. But Lenny, good to hear from you, mate. Have a good night. We're going to talk to Chris. We're going to talk to John. But we're also going to listen to Dion Warwick. The number's 0800.
Yeah, just before I start on my serious point, I call her Dion Warwick as well. But some people call her Warwick.
She actually... There was an article way back when she was big, as it were, saying that she preferred to be called Dione Warwick.
That just sounds awkward to say.
I know, but, you know, the article may have been untrue. It may be some clown messing about, but I read once that was what her preferred pronunciation was.
But would anyone call you Allan Beswick?
Well, no, there's no S. Otherwise they might.
No, but the two L's, Welsh, Allan.
Well, that's 2 L's as in clan, doesn't it? So it would be a clan. Yeah. Yep. And Allan, A-L-L-A-N, is a Welsh word anyway. It means exit.
Yes, it does. Yeah, I've seen the signs. Yeah.
So I've always been way out.
Do you know what? Do you know my surname is Hawes, as in like a hawthorn. But if that was a Welsh word, it'd be pronounced house.
Yeah.
And it means easier.
Oh, right.
Because it's on the, you know, the Tesco's in Wales. The slogan used to be making life easier.
Yeah.
It'd be something house, spelt like my surname.
Brilliant.
But anyway, that's completely, utterly pointless. I'm going to say something serious now.
Okay.
You know, what's his name? Was it Chris O'Shea, the fella from British Gas?
Go on, yeah.
Yeah, he was apologising for breaking into people's houses and that. I know he didn't do it, but It just got me thinking about. He can apologise all he wants, but it's just how ridiculous it is that things like gas, electricity are provided by private companies that need to make people go into debt. When you don't get different flavours of electricity, it's all the same. So that is one thing that you can give your opinion, but I'd like to say it to all your listeners. Can you give a logical, sound argument for why energy is privatised? What benefit does it bring anybody, apart from the people who run the companies?
Well, I can give you the answer. You won't agree with it, and I'm not saying whether I do or whether I don't, but the general principle is that if you privatise, because the utilities used to, of course, be operated entirely by the government, if you privatise it, then a number of things happen. First of all, private money comes into the company to develop the service, and there is competition, limited competition, because not everybody can, not everybody can run a gas company. But it's not that long ago when you could get a substantially cheaper gas and electricity from a myriad of companies. Now, what happened to that myriad of companies? They went bankrupt, but not by bad business, but by the price of gas rocketing exponentially that nobody could have predicted. But until then, you could move your account from one company to the next and get a lower deal. Rather like with mobile phones. If you've got a mobile phone, you can move to a different network and get it cheaper. So that was the argument.
I know. I think it's a bit of a, well, I don't know what the right word is, but it's a daft argument. Because if, I know we talked about this last night, if we had a planned economy and if the state controlled where the gas, the electric came from, and then it came to the people, it wouldn't be a case of how expensive it was. It'd just be a case of this is how much you need and this is what you're going to get.
Well, someone would have to pay for it ultimately, and that someone would be the taxpayer. And
planned economy.
Well, you may see that as the beauty, but not everybody agrees with you.
But I know, and Alan, I've got a lot of respect for you. Mm-hmm. But just to change tack from what I usually talk about, the question wasn't directed at you. It's for the entire of the people who are listening.
Indeed, but I'm the only one that can speak, and if others want to come on, they're more than welcome.
Yeah, I'm inviting them too.
That's kind of you, thank you.
You're welcome. Can I just make my second point?
Go on.
You know about child molesters?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a big fan of them.
I would hope you're not.
And I mean this with the utter amount of sympathy to any of the victims. But when you punish a child molester, it might not bring any comfort to the victim, but it does to society. That they're glad that they've gone or they've been harmed. And what I would do personally if I was in complete charge of the country, instead of doing experiments on like beagles or rabbits, if someone was convicted of child molestation, I'd say you've got a choice. You can be executed, or you can spend 6 years in prison being experimented on.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, that's my view on that.
Okay. Thank you very much. 0800 218 2255. What do you say? How do, John?
Hello, how are you doing?
Awfully well, thank you.
Very good, very good. Ties in with slightly with your Dionne Warwick, or whatever you want to call her. Two countries are separated by a single language, I think is what they say, because your point about the woodcock being banned on, was it Twitter or Facebook?
Twitter, I think it was.
Was it? Well, I was banned on Facebook for discussing a picture which hangs in the Birmingham Museum and Art Gallery by Benjamin Reader, called February Fill Dyke. Later on, whilst I'm discussing this with other people, another West Midlands fella came up and he'd been banned for putting out a recipe for that very old-fashioned Birmingham dish, faggots and peas. Bear in mind, it's not peas, as the BBC would have it.
Indeed, it's pays, as they would have in many parts other than the BBC, yeah.
And it's just, they've put all these things into what I think they term bots, and the bots seize on them, and there's no way you can argue. I sent a picture of the picture in Birmingham Art Gallery to Facebook headquarters, and they just blanked me, just totally ignored me. So, something we have to live with, two countries separated by a single language.
Yeah, I think it was Oscar Wilde who said something to that effect. I can't remember the exact quote, but you're fairly close with it anyway. All right.
I'm sure you're right. This time
Good on you. Oh, wait. Sorry, go on.
Okay, right. Just make the point. Good night.
And you, good night. 0800 218 2255. If you wish to join us, feel free. I mean, it is, despite the language difference, we are European. This isn't about Brexit. We are European. We have more in common with France and with Italy and with Germany and with Holland and with Belgium and all those other Spain, Portugal. We have more in common with those people than we do with America. I know. So, what was the Oscar Wilde quote that John and I are stretching out, trying to grasp? Two people's. Oh no, it doesn't matter. Can't remember it. I might look it up later. How do, Ted?
Well, it's all, kids. Just to say, the sun, Alan. The sun in the heavens.
Yeah.
Well, that gives space to planets. So that says that the sun is the female.
Right.
So fire is a female thing in it.
Well, you say so. I think it's genderless, but you're entitled to your view.
Well, but the sun, all the planets in our system came out the sun. So each sun in the universe, in our galaxy, the planets that are there from them suns came out of the suns. So that's female, isn't it?
Well, I say
Like
again, that's what you say. Given that the planets don't have gender, they are inanimate, then one is not really giving birth and don't have a gender. But you say they do, and who am I to try and convince you otherwise?
Well, the Earth is a female in it, Alan. It makes things grow.
My problem, Ted, is if you say the Earth is this, isn't it, you invite me to respond or agree. If you just tell me and don't ask me to respond, then I won't. And so you can just say what you like.
Okay. Well, do you remember Captain Scarlet, Alan?
I've heard the name.
Well, in Captain Scarlet's song he sings, they smash him, but they know he will return to live again. Captain Scarlet. It's amazing that Jerry Anderson, he knows what he was doing.
Indeed.
Thank you, Alan. Thanks, kid. Thanks. Bless you, Alan. Thanks a lot.
Have a good night. 0800 218 2255 if you want to join us. I hope you realise that Captain Scarlet was a puppet. How do Jessica?
Two people separated by a common language.
Yeah, George Bernard Shaw. I got it wrong.
I'm not saying it was him, but
it was.
I don't know who said it.
George Bernard Shaw said the British and the Americans are two great people divided by a common tongue.
Yeah. Well, George Bernard Shaw's also the one who said it's better to keep quiet and let people wonder if you're a fool than to speak and remove all doubt about it.
There's a lovely story. George Bernard Shaw and Sir Winston Churchill were not friends, not by any means. They were on entirely opposite sides of the political spectrum. And George Bernard Shaw had a play coming out for the first time on one of the theatres in London, and sent Sir Winston Churchill an invitation and said, I've sent you two tickets to my... It's a good one. I've sent you 2 tickets to my opening night. Bring a friend if you have one. And Churchill wrote back and said, I can't make it, but I'll come on the second night if you have one.
This is a story too with Bernard Shaw and Sarah Bernhardt. Do you know this one?
I might. Go on.
Well, she said she wanted to have a child by him because it would have her looks and his brain, and he turned it down and said, yes, but it might have my looks and your brain.
And that would be terrible.
Something, I can't remember the exact words, but...
We got the gist. Good on you, Jessica. Have a good night. 0800 218 2255. If you want to join us, that's good. Pick up your phone, have your say. How do Trevor?
Good evening, Alan.
Good evening, Trevor.
As always, a very entertaining programme. Captain Scarlet, those were the days. Good old Jerry Anderson indeed.
Yeah. Super Marionation.
Oh, yes. It was too. Although not necessarily entirely accurate or factual, shall we say. I think there was a bit of fiction in there, possibly.
Yeah. The strings were a giveaway.
Yes. Indeed. Cryptic crossword time. I know you spend the weekend waiting for these, so who am I to deny you, Alan? Short rest for a feline, 6 letters.
Catnap.
There you go. And gift dispatched beforehand, 7 letters.
Present?
There you are. Or pre-sent, as it were.
Pre-sent, oh yes, of course, yeah. Pre-sent, very good. Yeah.
Oh, 2 out of 2.
It's a world record. I do a lap of honour, but I'm knackered.
Oh dear. Right. Moving on. I noticed you took the woodcock story out of my mouth, as it were. I was... eager to talk about that.
I don't want to hear about you having a cock taken out of your mouth. I really don't.
Oh dear.
Anyway, go on.
But I will offer you the dive bombing owl that's instilling fear in the West Midlands, in Sedgley.
Right.
An aggressive owl has been dive bombing residents and attacking pensioners. Indeed, and people are saying they are too afraid to leave their homes. And it's apparently a Canadian great horned owl that is believed to be an escaped pet and is thought to be becoming more vicious either because it's hungry or because it's protecting its territory whilst looking for a mate. So there we are.
It's a lovely story. I heard a story yesterday, and I've forgotten the name of the bird, which is a shame. But this bird is almost extinct. It's the only one on its part of the world. It's the last one. And so it hasn't seen... Well, they brought some other birds of the same species but from elsewhere, and they brought it to this island where the bird lived.
Yes.
And introduced them, if you like. And the bird, the isolated bird, saw another one of his kind for the first time in 10 years.
Wow. Yeah.
And he went crazy. he did he danced a jig almost. Well, you would, yeah. Oh, blimey, look at this, sex at last. I don't know, come over here, I've got some stuff to put in your eggs. I don't know, but he was very, very pleased to meet his compatriots. Isn't that a fabulous story?
It's a good story, and by coincidence, my other sort of bird-related story has a connection to that. I refer to the American company that is proposing to recreate the dodo.
Oh, yes.
Which, of course, is extinct and has been, I think, for several hundred years. But they've apparently recovered DNA from a well-preserved dodo skeleton in Denmark, and they're going to work with pigeon eggs and some kind of genetic patterning of some sort or other, because pigeons apparently close-ish in some way to the dodo, and they're hoping to produce a dodo. And then I saw the same company had been talking about recreating the woolly mammoth. And I was I was sceptical, I think it's fair to say, about whether these things would come to fruition. But I read elsewhere that they've recently actually got $60 million investment into their woolly mammoth recreation program, and they have a target date of 2027. So if either of us are still around then, who knows, that there might be a recreated woolly mammoth, Alan.
Yeah. I mean, you have to consider what's the point, because you can't flog a wolf for love nor money. All the farmers in Wales and the Lake District, but nobody wants it.
No. Well, quite. And I did wonder what the point was, both of the woolly mammoth and the dodo, in a sense. But there we are. That's what they're investing in doing. You mentioned the Prince Harry story, and I was quite amused by that. But I was in particular amused by the fact that one Sunday paper described it as a world exclusive, whilst a rival Sunday paper had exactly the same story, even more prominently on its front page. And I thought, well, that's rather spoil your world exclusive, as it were.
It does a bit, doesn't it?
Yes. So finally, if I may, just a slightly more serious subject, the question of taking responsibility for things. And first of all, I was going to mention Liz Truss, who indeed you've already cited. She apparently says that the left-wing economic establishment brought her down. Well, I suppose it depends where you are in the political spectrum, but to describe the economic establishment as left-wing is an unusual take, I would say, but it certainly seems fairly clear that she's not eager to take responsibility for what happened. But following on from that is this ongoing story, and you've referred to it already, of breaking into people's homes to forcibly install prepayment meters. And in the course of the last few days, I've heard the government is shocked, Ofgem is shocked, the power companies are shocked, and even the debt collection company apparently are shocked that their employees were behaving in some ways that were contrary to company policy. And nobody seems to be stepping up to take responsibility. And I just think this is kind of symptomatic a bit of the way we're going, Alan.
But at least they've apologised.
Oh, well, yes.
That's what happens now. You do something wrong, you apologise and move on.
Yeah. And just finally, the other thing I was going to touch on was the role of the magistrates' courts in all of this, which I have to say strikes me as particularly bizarre. In the past, I think prior to COVID, effectively it was a process, as far as I know, in public, where people from the power companies actually had to turn up. But since then, it's either dealt with by them electronically submitting a spreadsheet of some sort, with up to 1,000 names on it, apparently, or in some cases by phone. And the reports I've read suggest that courts can grant up to 1,000 of these warrants in the space of 15 minutes. And even more surprising to me, and I suspect you've seen this, Alan, is that the BBC has had leaked to it some guidance from somebody who's apparently the National Leadership Magistrate. Not a role I was previously aware of. But I don't think I'm unfairly summarising what I've seen of it. It appears to say that careful scrutiny of these applications by power companies is disproportionate because it's no longer entry to disconnect people, it's only to fit prepayment meters. And that strikes me as extraordinary. Surely the court should have a role in properly scrutinising what's going on. And it's all very well saying it's only to fit prepayment meters, but as we hear, loads of people are effectively cutting themselves off because they can't afford to top up prepayment meters.
Absolutely, but of course what happens is governments bring in protective legislation and companies that are no longer owned by the government find a way around it. And that's how they've found the way around this. And they disguise it like we're trying to help them. Yeah, because what they need is to pay more for their gas. But what you've not mentioned is that the courts get paid for every single one of those. And they go, next, 20 quid, 20 quid, 20 quid. 20 quid.
It's a fundraising exercise, at least in part.
Well, they make money from it, but they're not really doing the job. But everybody's guilty now, except, well, I don't know, except everybody, except the poor schmuck for being poor.
Well, exactly so, Alan. Thank you very much.
Oh, good night. 0800 218 2255. If you want to join us, that's good. Pick up your phone, dead easy. Talk about virtually anything, absolutely anything, probably. We're here until 1. It's getting on for 20 past 11, so we could be knocking about for a little while longer. quite a big while longer. How do Eileen?
Hi, Alan. You know that English is 60% French and French is 60% English. And
I didn't, but I'm grateful for the figure.
Le Soleil is masculine, not feminine in French.
What
is?
The
sun, he said. Le Soleil, it's le, not la. La is the feminine for the, and le is the male. And I just thought I would mention that. And what I wanted to mention was, the Count of Monte Cristo, the film and the book, that was written by a Frenchman. And he wrote a book in English. And he was so surprised at how much English was French and French was English. And that's about that. When you're learning French, there's so many words and verbs that you just put an accent to it, and it's French.
Well, of course, we were conquered and ruled by the French for many, many years.
Yes, and that's where fuck off comes from.
Well, I'm not going to discuss that with you. Right, well, she's gone, or to use her phrase. No, I won't. 0800 218 2255. If you want to join us, you can. Pick up your phone and have your say. I didn't know it came from there, but lots of our words are French and also English at the same time. And we even have some words from other parts of the world as well, because we spent our time going around and stealing all their stuff. Like bungalow comes from the subcontinent, Indian subcontinent, apparently. I didn't know that, but it does. Isn't that weird? Why did we steal it? Well, they didn't bother having an upstairs. I don't know why that is either. 0800 218 2255. Want to join us? That's good. A quick shufty tomorrow morning's newspapers. Yes, it's only 20 past 11, so it is still going to be tomorrow morning. Although, to be honest, it's always going to be tomorrow morning at some point, isn't it? Or, more accurately, he said pedantically, it's never going to be tomorrow morning, because tomorrow morning, when you get to tomorrow, it'll be today. So it's this morning. I know. I don't understand it either. It's very, very difficult. But as I say, a quick look at the newspapers for tomorrow morning. I'm not starting that again. For example, The Guardian, chief nurses warn over deadlock on NHS pay. And the Tories scorn Truss's claim. She said that you just heard somebody quoting, that she said that the left-wing the left-wing economists did me down, and she went out of her way not to listen. Tories scorn Truss's claim. 1 in 10 police officers slipped through vetting. Interesting. Starts to tell you how our police officers are selected, and the answer seemed to come back not very well. Truss sparks Tory turmoil over tax cuts. That's the alliteration of the I newspaper. The Daily Telegraph, Truss to challenge the Prime Minister over China. And they don't mean cups and saucers. More money won't solve the NHS, says the head of a review. It won't do it any bloody harm, will it? 0800 218 2255 if you want to comment on that. How do, Lindsay?
Hello.
Hello.
Again. Yeah, I was just wanting to say about British Gas. Did they really just like break into people's homes and then do what they had to do and then just leave the door unlocked and went away?
I don't know what they did afterwards. Bailiffs who do gain access forcefully are required to render the property safe once they've left. So whether they did or not, I don't know. I wasn't there. But they are required to.
Oh, they would have boarded it up because I've watched them programmes. Can't pay, take it away.
Right. Well, they're possibly not the same people, but they might be. I have no idea.
Yeah. There's something else I forgot to say, but my memory's going. So I'll phone next week.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
We'll probably
Bye.
still be alive and therefore still here. Thank you. 0800 218 2255. The Sun newspaper in the morning. Dad, I had Harry in a field. This is the woman who's the prince's first lover. I think possibly lover's overstating it, but certainly first fandangler, messing with his fandangler. Prince's first lover tells all to her father, presumably before he read it in the papers yesterday, and he didn't know the pub romp was his daughter. He never knew. She never went home and said, "Hey, Dad, I've just had a prince." What? I've just had a prince. I thought you didn't like dogs. The front page of the Times, unions accused of risking lives with the biggest ever NHS walkout. Of course, you could put the other story and say politicians risking lives by not coughing up the money that the unions are asking for. You pays your money, you takes your choice. Delusional Truss will cost votes, the Tories fear. So not only did she knacker them with all her half-baked policies, as many people call them, but now she's getting a gob out again after hiding under the stairs for a month or two. Now she's getting a gob out again. They're saying it's going to do more harm than good. Move to let motorists compare all fuel prices. Yeah, but if it's cheaper in Dorset, are you going to drive all the way there? Probably not. Daily Mail front page. No wonder the NHS can't afford the union's pay demands. The NHS is spending £400,000 a day on private ambulances and taxis to plug the gaps in emergency care. The Daily Mirror, 1 hour later she vanished. Missing mum captured on new footage. This is the photograph, or various photographs of the Nicola Burley that's gone missing. Bewley that's gone missing and has got everybody guessing. Arctic brass monkeys, energy grid under pressure in a polar plunge. In other words, going to get cold. Nicola's family hurt by the vile theories. Needless to say, the lass has gone missing, and now, of course, the internet is buzzing with the puerile vileness of the people that do that sort of thing. It is, I've said before, it is just, it's for fools and vile individuals. I don't have anything to do with it. How do Patrick?
Yeah, I'm good.
What would you like to talk about, Patrick?
I think last week I'd like to talk about the terrorist attack in Israel last week and the media's poor display of it.
In what way was the media's display of it poor?
So I think we discussed last week the media's bias towards Israel, and they described the terrorist attack as being in Jewish occupied East Jerusalem. But in fact, it wasn't. It was in North Jerusalem, and 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 Jews have been living there for the past century. So why would they describe it like that?
I don't know. I can't speak for the media. They will describe it in the way that they think is accurate. You're telling me it's not accurate, but to be honest, for everyone that comes on here and says it's wrong, there's another one comes on and says it's right. So I don't know which is correct.
So, but why would the media display false information like that?
Again, I don't have any way to speak for the media. In what way? What are the media saying that you disagree with?
No, it's not just
Patrick, your line is breaking up. It's very difficult to understand what you're saying. Your line's a bit off and on, bobbing in and out.
Is it better now?
Well, it seemed it during that short sentence. Let us try and find out.
Okay, fine. So we discussed last week there was a terrorist attack in Jerusalem last week, I think Friday, right?
But Patrick, it's not your fault. It's still wonky. If you put your phone down, I'll get the team to ring you back, and we'll try again to see if we get a better connection. Because it's got.
Thank you very much.
All right, I do want to talk to you, but the technology is getting in the way, as it so often does. Do you remember when phone lines used to work properly? 0800 did? Yeah, they did. I promise you, they did. But nobody uses them anymore. Now it's all relying on skies and satellites and planets and big tall sticks at the end of the street. 0800 218 2255. Here's Danny Wilson. He's not phoning in. He's singing. It's Mary.
Yeah, can you hear me better now?
Oh, that's miles better, yeah. What were you saying, Patty? I know it's something about the Middle East and the difficulties, and you had something to say about the press.
So obviously there's a lot of conflict in the Middle East, but so you may not be aware. I mean, we did speak about it last week, but there was a terrorist attack in Israel, in Jerusalem, on Friday or Saturday, I'm not sure when, and the media displayed it as in the occupants were in the wrong. They described it as it took place in Jewish occupied East Jerusalem, where the fact was that it didn't, and it was in North Jerusalem, and Jews have been living there for the past century. So I'm not sure why the media chooses to display it like that.
Right, I have no way of answering that, obviously.
Yeah. And also another question: the general response to when such things. Unfortunately, such things are very common in Israel, and the world, and the general response in the world is very quiet about it. I mean, if such a thing would take place in America or France, where 7 innocent people were killed, then there would be an uproar on Twitter, on Facebook, and all that sort of thing. Why isn't there such a thing when it takes place in Israel?
Well, the outrage is less, and I suspect the media perceive it as terrorism on both sides, although one lot of terrorism is performed by armed, uniformed, regular soldiers on behalf of their government, and the other form of terrorism is performed by people who are not as organised. Those aren't my words, that is my interpretation of what you're saying.
Well, these people, the terrorism from the other side is not from the Israeli government. It's generally just unprovoked and just...
it's hard to argue that any violent act against the populations of either of the principal groups in the Middle East are unprovoked, because there is nothing but constant provocation, retaliation going on. It is an endless cycle, and as I said last week, it won't end for the next 200 or 300 years until both sides come to their own individual conclusion that neither of them can win. And once they acknowledge to themselves that they cannot win, then it is possible to resolve it. Until then, they'll just go on killing each other.
Okay, fine. So we don't have to talk about that. Otherwise, we'll be here all night. But maybe we'll just talk about something else tonight, which is the general response towards it. We've I don't know if it's still going on or not, but the footballers were taking a knee before every match in faith of and in support of a certain organisations. But why? And if, let's say, a major character in football, such as a former coach or a former manager, would pass away, they'd also take a minute's silence. And if they find that a major tragedy happened somewhere across the world, they would most likely take a minute's silence. Why don't they do that when the fact was that 7 innocent people were killed? And they don't. And let's say a big influential, how do you describe it? Part of our society doesn't react to it because it took place in Israel.
Well, I can't answer that, but I can give you the rough explanation of why football clubs and others decided to take the knee. I personally thought it was a stupid decision, but then I'm not in favour of very many demonstrations. But the idea was that in the United States, a black person is substantially, statistically more likely to be shot by a police officer whilst going about their innocent business than is a white person. And one such shooting took place that caused outrage, once again, and people started to take the knee saying Black Lives Matter, because the implication of the behaviour of the United States Police is that black lives don't matter as much. So that was the thinking behind that. Now, that's taking sides of an oppressed group against their oppressors, if you like, saying they shouldn't be oppressed in that way. The oppressors in the Middle East are, frankly, on both sides. I'm not saying they're equal on both sides, but both sides are prepared to kill the other side simply because they killed one of us. It's tit for tat. I don't know when tit or tat started, but it's tit for tat and has been for a very, very long time and won't resolve until they each believe we cannot win this battle. We cannot. That's what happened in Northern Ireland. The IRA realised they can never win with bullets and bombs. And the British government realised they can never overcome the argument of the IRA with throwing soldiers into Northern Ireland. It doesn't work. There isn't an answer. The answer has to be from the people. And at the moment, the people in the Middle East are not happy with the situation, particularly when their lot get killed, but they're quite prepared for their lot to go and kill some of the other lot. And so until that stops, it'll carry on, which is a moronic thing to say. But until people say we cannot win this way, we'd better find another one, it will carry on.
Well, that didn't really answer the question I asked, why the football, why the Premier League and those similar to it don't show reaction to such tragedy.
I did say when I started to reply to your question, I can't speak for the footballers. I don't know why they did it. I know what the explanation is, and that's the explanation. Personally, I think it was stupid. I still think it's stupid, quite frankly. At some point, you've got to stop doing it. You can't do that for the next 5,000 years. So at some point, footballers are going to say, we're not going to do it anymore. So do we then say, so have Black Lives stopped mattering then? So it's a stupid, idiotic thing to do. Ill thought out, done with emotion, done with the right ideas, you might argue, but stupid nonetheless, pointless. And in the future, someone's going to say, why aren't you doing it now? Has it stopped mattering?
All right. So, but why don't?
What would you have the footballers do? Because they won't have a universal view. They are demonstrating a universal view about Black Lives Matter. Are you wanting them to say Jewish lives matter and take the knee? Or are you wanting them to say Palestinian lives matter and take the knee? Because both lots are dying. So, and on both sides there are people saying our people are dying unjustly. Jewish people, Israeli people, to be more accurate, are saying we are dying unjustly. And the Palestinian people are saying we are dying unjustly. So the footballers can't say there is one side that is just and one side that is not just. So we're taking the knee. Who for? Oh, I don't know.
So it's not okay. You don't have to pick sides in that.
Well, you do if you want to support somebody. If you want to support somebody, you have to pick a side.
Okay, it's fine. But so in England, we don't. So here in England, we don't have a particular religion as in which represents our country as a whole, because we have an entire mix. So if such a thing takes place in England, okay, then such a thing, then most people would react to it. Then sport and the like would make a reaction, because it doesn't matter because we live in the country where it doesn't matter who's who. If someone suffers from heredity, then we show our support. So in that case, it doesn't matter that who died, if it was a Palestinian terrorist or a Jewish terrorist, and it was Palestinian victims or Jewish victims. The fact is that the world should show their support to the families that suffered their loss. It doesn't matter what religion they are. Obviously, there's some sort of interior bias towards this particular case.
Well, again, there isn't a universally accepted right and wrong in that part of the Middle East. There is only those people who believe Israel is correct in their behaviour, and they only ever respond to violence perpetrated against them. And there's people who believe the Palestinians are right in their behaviour because of the way they're treated by Israel. Now, I know for sure that they are not both right, but I don't know which one is.
Okay, fine, but then why can't the world take conflict out from them and just focus on the matter at hand?
Well, I don't know the answer to that. If you want the press to report favourably on what's going on in the Middle East, then encourage your politicians on both sides to sit down and talk to each other. I promise you that will get good coverage. But so long as people are getting bombed and shot, it's not going to happen.
But likely though that terrorist attack wasn't a doubt was provoked by conflict and I mean what's ravaging in a random village in Jerusalem going to do to the conflict in the Middle East? It's obviously just a random act of terrorism which the world should show a reaction to.
What is going to happen is every time one side does something, it will be criticised by the other side, and the other side will then do its best to retaliate. And I can say that without any hesitation or fear of contradiction. That is what happens. It's been happening for a long time, and until people realise that there is not success at the end of either their behaviours, it will carry on, and it means centuries. That's how it is.
Okay, fine, but we've...
Good to talk to you, Patrick. Have a good night. How do Oscar?
Hello, Alan. Wanted to have a quick word about Captain Scarlet, since it was mentioned, but probably have to be brief because you said you didn't really watch it or you don't really remember it. I wanted to go on to talk about Liz Truss after that. So the interesting thing about Captain Scarlet, I thought, was that Captain Scarlet, he was kind of a representative of Earth, but the storyline is it's Captain Scarlet against the Mysterons, and the Mysterons are apparently, I think, from Mars, if I've got that right. But the interesting point was that in the pilot episode, we saw that these Earth people went to Mars and actually launched an unprovoked attack on the Mysterons, who had a civilization there on Mars, and they were sort of minding their own business. And the general plot of the series was that these evil Mysterons were attacking Earth people in the unusual way that they did. But, of course, really the culprit all along was the Earth people who'd launched this unprovoked attack. And that kind of thing wasn't really emphasized, but I thought it was kind of an interesting element to the plot.
It's beginning to sound like the Middle East or Northern Ireland or any of the other crazy places where human beings beat the crap out of
peculiar thing. But, the other thing, of course, Captain Scarlet was indestructible. That was one of the other major things about him. He was a hero who was indestructible. So you thought, well, what's the point really of having a hero who can go into any kind of situation and fight anybody and get blown up or destroyed or killed in any way, but he would actually never die. So, I mean, even Superman had kryptonite, didn't he? But Captain Scarlet, he could sort of like, the Mysterons didn't really stand a chance in that sense. But I was wondering, you didn't watch it, but can anybody actually phone in and tell me what was the explanation for how Captain Scarlet became indestructible? I seem to have a vague memory that he became a Mysteron, and because he sort of became a Mysteron, because the Mysterons used to create Mysteron clones of people that they'd killed. So they would kill somebody and then recreate an exact image of the person they'd killed, and that would be a Mysteron agent who would do the bidding of the Mysterons in terms of extracting revenge on the Earthmen who had attacked the Mysteron base. So I think it was something like that, but can anybody actually ring in and confirm to me if they remember how it was that he became indestructible?
Right, okay, well, if they do, great.
But yeah, the Liz Truss situation, which is a bit of a more serious situation. I'm not a fan of Liz Truss, was never a fan of her, didn't want her to become Prime Minister, although I'm even less of a fan of Rishi Sunak. But it happened, and I think they're saying this is sort of her speaking out really in a big way for the first time, where she said, I was nobbled by the leftists, that I didn't really get a chance because the left kind of ganged up on me. And
that's her point of view. The left within her party, and indeed I think she said the left economists of the left or whatever. I don't know. But
that's right. Yeah.
So, view?
As I say, I'm not a fan of her, and a lot of the time I would disagree with her policies and things. But I do think, in this respect, she was correct, that she was nobbled by the leftists. So I disagree with your earlier caller who said, well, the society that we're living in is hardly leftist. So how can she say that? Well, I think she was absolutely correct.
The trouble is that you've got to define leftist. Now, is leftist someone who is, I don't know, on the far extreme of the left, or is it just someone that's more left than you? Can I even if I'm, I don't know, a hard right-wing person, someone in the middle of the road to me is a leftist. So it's not a precise definition. Leftist, in most sentences, mean somebody whose policies are left of mine. So inevitably, it's going to be leftist, because the right side, if you like, I don't mean correct, but the side on her right aren't going to stop her doing exactly what she's wanting them to do. But the people who don't want her to do it, they may not be dyed-in-the-wool communists or even members of the Labour Party. They might just be left of her.
Yeah.
They could be the most mild centrists in the country, but she'll still say the people on the left stop me. But she means the
It's
people
all relative.
not on my... Yeah, it's absolutely all relative. The only thing we do know is she's crap at economics.
Yeah, well, obviously she failed in her mission, but I think her assessment is correct, and you want to sort of talk about how do you define a leftist? It is well documented and well established that people who would describe themselves as, and who others would describe as, the radical left have over the years come to the realization that if they are going to win and if they're going to grab power, they have to do so by adopting
power. You make it sound like an overthrowing. If you mean they're going to win an election, not grab power.
Yeah, well, they can't win elections because they know.
Well, they can't get power then. Power comes with the election.
Well, yes.
Liz Truss wasn't Prime Minister because she grabbed power. She was Prime Minister because the fat blonde bloke slung his hook because his party got sick of him despite loving him, and they voted her in, and then they didn't like her, so they voted her out. Nobody grabbed power.
I know, but the way she came to power was a bit dubious. But the point is that...
It wasn't. It was an election. She came to power in exactly
by the electorate, was it?
Well, no, she wasn't. She wasn't seeking to be the leader of the country. She was seeking to be the leader of the Conservative Party, who, by dint of the fact that they won the election, that is de facto how you become the Prime Minister. But she didn't go out to the country. Why would she?
I know. All right, but look, she fell foul of. You know what happened? It was, they said, the markets that kind of turned against her when she put forward these ideas, which had some merit and had some dismerit, if you like. And she came up with this idea that we need to do things which are a little bit radical in some ways. But the people who really put the boot in are people who are in the establishment because of the strategy which the left has said we need to employ because we can't win elections. So what we have to do...
Are you really telling me that all those people in the city who said her policies are screwing us were actually doing it so they could get the Labour Party elected? You can answer yes or no.
Yes, there are sufficient of them. There are sufficient of them already in these places within these. They call it. There's a name for it. It's called the
city. So you're arguing to me, just so I get this correct, you're arguing to me that the city and the money movers, who are basically just crooks who get away with it, but the city and the money movers are all left wingers, or predominantly left wingers.
There's sufficient of them in there to do the damage.
Right.
It's called
there's not enough on the other side to stop them doing that damage.
No, there isn't.
There's a few rotten apples, but the rest of the barrel is just rotting away. These have been the right wingers. Was it the left wingers that screwed us over when the banks went bust? Was that the left wingers? Is that what you're telling me? Because it was all done by a coterie of the left in the financial markets, or was it just done by stinking crooks trying to make a living out of poor people? I don't know.
It's the same kind of people from the same original kind of thread.
I'm not challenging you that it's not the same kind of people. I know damn well it's the same kind of people. It's people who wander about in suits, screwing up poor people's lives. What I'm suggesting to you is your definition that they are manipulated by a rump of leftists sounds stupid.
They are cultural Marxists. This is what they are.
Cultural Marxists.
Cultural Marxists. Look it all up. Look up the Frankfurt.
I don't have to look anything up. I just have to listen to you and think, I know what
listen
stupid
to me then
sounds
if you
like.
want.
Do it. No, I've had enough. Good night. I'll do Lenny.
I think you're going to love this call. It's purely coincidental. But I think you're going to I can put a bit of common sense into what you've just been talking about. My hobby is politics and debating on the radio. And what I did when Liz Truss announced her budget on the Friday night, I phoned up a radio station and predicted to the presenter that Liz Truss would be the shortest reigning Prime Minister that the UK's ever had. And I did it the same on Sunday to Dotton on Radio London, and on Radio London on Monday to Jim Davis. So I don't know all that rubbish that bloke was talking about, because it was plain to see that was absolutely, there was no logic in that budget that they produced.
Right. And you're an expert on budgetary matters, are you?
No, no, I'm not an. What I do, I've made politics my hobby, Ian. Alan, and what it is, and I just look at the truth and logic. And what it is, I mean, and tickle down, where she said tickle down economics.
Do you mean trickle down? Because tickle down's something entirely different.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, okay. I'm never so sorry, Alan. I'm getting a little bit nervous. But what it is, trickle down economics does not work, because if you look at our country, the rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer, and there's nothing trickling down to the rich to feed the poor.
Right.
So if you, whether, you know, because I do debate a lot, and I predicted that on, as I say, on the Friday night that the budget was announced, and on Radio London on the Sunday and the Monday. Mm-hmm. So that I thought what that previous black chap was just talking was a load of rubbish. But anyway, can I give you another little bit of
He may hold the same view of you, Rennie, but don't worry.
Yeah, well, that's it, mate. Everyone's allowed their opinion and that. But anyway, the other thing is another little bit of Cockney humour, where your lady was talking about different languages and saying cock a van. In Cockney banter, that's sex in a caravanette.
Right.
Yeah, that was all. I just thought different things mean different things in different languages.
This is true. That's the separation between us. But Lenny, good to hear from you. Thank you. Andrew Simon.
Hi, Alan. Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, I tried to ring you earlier, but I couldn't pull over safely, so eventually got connected. So I hope it was worth. The wait.
Well, let's find out, should we?
Last night, there was a couple of calls about the energy scheme which the government was funding.
Yes.
Just for a little bit of clarity, I think they're referring to the energy bill support scheme.
Yeah.
That was introduced, and it was for £400 for every household, irrespective. There's no means testing, and it meant 2 payments of £66, followed by 4 payments of £67, which totalled the 400.
Yeah.
Now, how they got that depends on, I know this has been touched on before as well, by what method of payment they use for the supplier, be it prepayment or direct debit, etc. You did say that they were talking about direct debit on the initial call that brought this up, Alan, and you said about, the direct debit wouldn't change, and there'd be a credit on your bill, etc. And that sort of sparked me to call, because our direct debit did change. That's how they sort of gave it back to us. They wrote to us and said, we are lowering your direct debit by £66.
Right.
This month. And they lowered it by £67, and it started in October, and it runs for 6 months and finishes April. But yes, they actually changed that.
What we gleaned during the course of the conversations last night was that different companies are doing it in entirely different ways.
Yes. Which doesn't help.
That's the joys of freedom, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good idea, but implemented in many, many different ways. And I think, yet again, the prepayment people lost out. Well, they lost out. They were entitled to the same amount, but the way that they got it, they had to jump through more hoops of fire than anybody else. And yet again, penalised because of their circumstance.
Yeah, I mean, everything is harder for poor people because governments of every hue are terrified of them. Absolutely terrified of them. Because if they acknowledge that there are people who haven't got enough to eat, once they acknowledge that, they've got to do something about it.
They've got to do something about it.
So they just when somebody says, "Well, soup kitchens," yeah, but that's solving it, isn't it? That's solving it. They've got a soup.
Yeah. Food banks, marvellous. Great.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Yeah.
Then they're not outside our offices shouting at us. They're queuing up and getting some food.
And I prove I care about it as an MP on $85,000 a year by going down there every so often, handing a few beans out, making sure I'm photographed.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, got to have that. No, it's just with all the scams. I mean, there was a caller earlier. He was saying, "How do you know that text was from the government?" Now, the prepayment people were told, "Oh, you'll get a text to say how you will get." They were very woolly about this to start with. They basically worked out that everyone on direct debit, brilliant, we love you because you're on direct debit and we can control the amounts. You'll get your money easy peasy. The ones on prepayment, you'll get this weird text, maybe telling you that there might be a voucher, maybe that you've got to go and it was ridiculous. So, how many scams there are out there at the in this day and age? I personally would have looked at a text saying, "Oh, you're entitled to 60 odd quid or something, take this text or voucher to a shop," you're thinking, no chance. It's another one of those death scams.
I used to work at the Citizens Advice Bureau in the 70s, and one of the scams then was that money lenders used to lend money to parents, to mothers generally, and to make sure that they got their repayments, they took their family allowance book off them, which was against the law. But they took their family allowance book off them, and then instead of the parent, the mother, cashing the family allowance to feed their children, the money lender cashed it in. So they lent them 100 quid, took the family allowance book off them, and until they'd got 200 quid off the family allowance book, they didn't give them it back. And we at the CAB, I don't mean me, but the CAB generally, told the government about this, and the government said, "But it's against the law." And no recognition of the fact that the law, although it applies to thieves, it doesn't stop them unless you do something about it. It's just governments are terrified of poor people, because if they admit that people are poor, then they've got to take some of the blame.
Do something about it. Absolutely. Got to do
and
something about it.
That's not just the Tories, that's the whole pack of them.
Yeah, well, it doesn't matter what rosette they wear on the electoral stage. They're all boiled down to. They're all human beings that just have one purpose: to get re-elected.
And that's it in a nutshell. First job of a Prime Minister who walks through number 10 for the first time, sits down and says, "OK, 5 years, what are we going to do? How are we going to get elected in 5 years?
How do we get back in?" And Rishi's apparently going to he's going to solve inflation.
Yeah.
He's going to solve the NHS.
Yeah. Oh, he's going to work it all out.
He's going to do a lot. He's going to have a hell of a year.
I know. I'll tell you, that February in 2 years' time is going to be a cracker.
I believe every single word he says.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to the result. Can I just tell you a quick joke before?
Oh, please do, yes.
Just to lighten the mood. Yeah, it was just about my mate Dave, who he's only got one leg, and he went for a job in a beer factory. The owner said, "Oh yeah, you can be in charge of the hops." I thank you.
Have a good night, Simon. 0800 218 2255. How do, Tracy?
Yo. Did he just say he could be in carrot ops? Did he say he only had one leg? Yo. Allan. Who the go-go dragged that Liz Truss back up? Because let me tell you, she's not happening. And with the other girls and sisters, brothers and that, she's going down. She's not up here. Listen, we're not having that. But I really wanted to talk to you about you. And this is passion from my heart, yo. Not get on this. Right. Years ago, I was at a school, and the girl next to me, she was called Catriandra, yo. And she had pictures, and you say to her, "Who's that? Who's that?" I thought she was nutter. I thought she'd superimposed me. I'm going back to, like, you know, 80s. She kept saying, no. I said, well, that's not real. Maths class, Mr. Rowell, Northern County, yeah, anyway, so, she's like, I'm sat next to her at desk. Because, you know, back in day, you know, do you remember when you used to go to school, Alan?
I do remember going to school, yeah. It's quite a big chunk of my life.
Do you remember when you used to go to different lessons?
Yes.
In different buildings and everything, right? So this is one of these, right? Maths class, Cassandra. I mean, I didn't even believe that were her name anyhow. I just keep calling her Sandra. No, my name's Cassandra. And she shows me, well, she was doing Gary Glitter, right? Oh, she told me everything as well. And I said, well, I said, what your parents think? Because you've got parents. I said, I mean, you've got, you know. She went, you know what she said? She showed me a picture of them. No. Let me tell you, it's right.
Tracy.
Always has been. Knock him out, you!
Good night. I'll do Beverly.
Morning, Alan. How are you?
Good morning. Very well, thank you.
I've just come on, really, to say, I don't know how true it is, that Jeremy Clarkson wants to write to the government, or ask the government, to put up the food prices even more. At the moment, I am disgusted with him. And I shouldn't say this, but hope that he's a sound mind. I just feel for everybody, we're all in the same boat. None of us have got any money. None of us have, you know, can have the heating on and the food, and there's old people sitting, and especially if they've got to have their masks on, and, you know, no heating and hardly eating. I just think it's a whole mess. But for him to even...
Many people will agree with her it's a whole mess, but Jeremy Clarkson is a farmer these days, amongst other things, and farmers, including him, are having trouble trying to make a living farming because food prices are so low.
Right.
So, I mean, if you watch any of the farming programmes, you'll find that sometimes a farmer will send, say, a sheep to market, he'll get 30 quid for it, cost him 60 quid to rear it. He's now 30 quid out of profit. You and me get cheap chops. So it's that's if he has done that, and I'm not doubting you, if he has done that, and that's the gist of it, because he's a farmer, he's now saying, well, food prices are too low for farming to pay. And if farming doesn't pay, farmers will jack it in, and then we'll be paying... You know, we'll be in the hands of the continent, and it didn't do us too well when we went into the hands of the continent for gas, did it? So that's what he's arguing.
Right. Oh, you've just made sense, really, to me. I just sort of, I've read, skim reading, and I'm thinking, you know, he wants to put everybody's struggling, really struggling, you know, and when people were coming on about these energy prices, and they can... you know, change from one to the other, and everybody can charge different prices. You know, it's just a mess, Alan.
Yeah, but it was like that for a while, a decade or so. You could move to a different company and get your energy cheaper. But of course now, they're all gone because of all sorts of reasons, but about the way energy companies buy their energy. And they ended up selling it rather like farmers. They ended up selling it for less than it costs to provide it, so they went bust.
Well, my friend was one of those savvy with the husband on the computer. I don't have one. And she was saying, well, I go to this company and I go to that company, I save this and save that, you know. Yeah, a good idea, but like you said, most of them have gone now, you know. But these people that do put it up, who are they actually? Who are the people that actually put it up? in the very long run. I know things get worse before they get better, Alan, and maybe there is a light at the end of this tunnel. But do we actually know?
The people that put it up, I mean, I don't know their names, but they can be found. But the companies that put it up are the companies that buy the gas and then have to sell it. And they need to make a profit, otherwise they won't be able to buy it next time. And they're a company. Their job is to make a profit. They're not another job. And so they buy the gas from various different sources, shopping around, getting the cheapest they can. They do a long-term deal, and then they buy the gas. And whilst they're selling that gas, they then do another long-term deal. Now, one of the problems is that when there's not much about, it gets very expensive. And, of course, the Ukrainian war meant that Russia turned off the gas taps. Germany and others were buying most of their gas from Russia. So now they can't, because the Russians said, you're not having it, sod off. So Germany's now going to buy it somewhere else. So Germany goes to a company that's selling their gas, say, to England, and says, we'll pay more than them. So the gas seller says, all right, we'll sell it to you then. So the England says, no, we need it, we'll pay more than him. And you end up in a bidding war.
So where are we actually getting our where are we getting our gas and electric from?
I don't know the exact... Well, the electricity comes from the electricity generating companies, but of course they use gas, and I think there's a teeny bit of coal and various other sources, but predominantly gas to turn the turbines to generate the electricity. So we're getting it off companies that have to also buy their gas and the like on the open market.
Okay, you've just made it a bit more clear to me, that's all. I always say the poorer people that always suffer. Going back to King Henry VIII, not that I was there, but all I've learned through history and that, it was always the poor people that ended suffering at the end of the day, and I think that's what we are. We're all suffering.
Yeah.
No.
I'll tell you where you said, where do we get our electricity from? Well, right now, 6.6 gigawatts of our electricity is being provided by burning gas. 0.9 gigawatts is being provided by burning coal. 4.2 gigawatts is being provided by burning nuclear, if you like. Oil, none. Solar, none. It's dark. Wind, 5.9 gigawatts. Hydro, 0.4. Biomass, that's wood, basically, 2. And so you can keep going down the list, but that's where we get it from. We get it from burning, effectively, fossil fuels, or from the sun, or from wind.
Can I just say that I've got a friend in Runcorn, and he's still got an open fire, so he has to buy coal and the firewood and things like that,
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's still there in the old town. Anyway, thanks for having me on, Alan.
It's my pleasure. Good to talk to you. 0800 218 2255. You want to do that and see where our energy is coming from at any given time, then there's a website that gives the information. The website is grid.energynumbers.info. So that's grid.energynumbers.info. And it tells you the current, so when you look at it, it's that moment you're looking at, the past hour, current electricity generation in Britain. And as I say, at the moment, wind is providing 5.9 gigawatts, which is an awful lot, but it's very windy somewhere. And we're also buying 3.5 gigawatts from France. We're buying 1.3 from Norway. We're just under 1 from Netherlands and Belgium. And we're exporting 3/4 of a gigawatt to Ireland. So it's a mystery, isn't it? But there you are. I'll give you it again. Grid.energynumbers.info. I know, it's fascinating stuff. Or is it not? 0800 218 2255. How do, Paul?
Morning, Alan. It's Paul from Liverpool. I'm phoned about Grant Shapps. I came in and watched the tail end of an interview on the TV. And he's the actual business and energy secretary, isn't he?
I think he is, yeah.
Yeah. Well, he was quoted as saying about the current strike with the National Health, it's putting lives at risk. This is coming from a person who, when he was the Secretary of State of Transport last year, he stood by the use of smart motorways with the current death toll of 28 people who have been killed on them. And he's sort of saying the National Health are putting lives at risk. Well, these people lost their lives.
Indeed, but of course, people are always going to get killed on motorways. I mean, they are the safest roads in Britain, but you still get killed on them in small numbers. The argument isn't the argument isn't how many are killed. The argument is whether smart motorways cause more deaths or reduce the number of deaths. Now, the government used to believe that they reduce the number of deaths. That belief is wavering.
Yeah, but the fact is, they say about technology with the cameras, I won't go on these motorways because if you have a fault with the car and it happens so quickly, by the time the camera's seen it happen, within a minute or so, the car behind, there could be a multi-car pile-up.
Yeah, and the issue isn't...
It happens within...
That's a very real risk. There's no question of it. That is a very real risk. The government believed, the government were convinced by all kinds of people that would make the roads safer. Others are now arguing that the evidence is to the contrary, is the opposite.
Yeah. Well, when you get the breakdown people, like to say RAC and AA, would not go on them to rescue anybody. And you're talking about minutes before a fatality would happen. If a person behind you or a few cars behind aren't paying attention, that's it. It's too late to do anything.
But to come back to your original point, which is a realistic point, Grant Shapps saying that the NHS strikes are putting lives at risk, and the answer is that must be true. That must be true. Now the question then is it the union's fault for going on strike, or is it the employer's fault for not giving the unions what they ask for? Because in the end, I don't pay the unions, I pay my taxes to the government. The government provides the National Health Service with those taxes. It has the obligation, surely, to look after the people. The nurses don't, they're just doing their job.
Yeah. But the fact is, he's commenting on on the nurses' actions and the doctors' actions, and yet he stood by the use of the smart motorways.
Well, he stood by the use of smart motorways because at that time, the scientific evidence... I mean, the ministers are not experts in their field. They are the people who make the ultimate decision. But they rely on advice and information, and they get all that advice and information, and they say, on balance, this is the decision. Now, he didn't say motorways are safer. The evidence provided to him by the community, the scientific community, the road traffic community said they were.
Yeah. It was obvious. It's an accident waiting to happen, isn't it? Literally. Just using the smart motorways.
You say it's obvious.
I think I'm a driver, and I've been driving for over 40 years, and I would not go on one.
Oh, that's fine. I too am a driver, and been driving a little bit longer than that, and I do. But I am aware that when you're on a smart motorway and the hard shoulder's being used in a running lane, it's more risky than it was, or it feels more risky than it was when there was always a hard shoulder.
Yeah. Anyway, I had to say something about it, because with him saying that, putting lives at risk, and he sanctioned the use of smart motorways, it contradicts it totally.
Okay. Good on you, Paul. Good to hear. No problem. How do, William?
Good morning, Mr. Beswick.
Good morning.
I'd like to speak about the gentleman who rang up. He does the crypto crosswords with you. He raised the point about the civil law, how the agents were granted access into people's buildings?
It's not. It's. I don't know what you mean. In order for a person to have forced access to a building, they need the prior approval of a magistrate, and to do so without that would be a criminal offence. Would be breaking and entering.
That's correct.
Okay.
Who made that law?
Who made what law?
They have to go to a magistrate's court to proceed with a civil case.
Well, it's
under criminal law.
Well, they're not proceeding with the civil case under criminal law. They're getting, if you like, this is the wrong word, but an exemption from the criminal law to enter a household. So there is law laid down as to who does and who does not have the right to enter your home. And in most cases, an individual does not. Even a bailiff has no right to enter your property against your wishes and breaking in to do so. So if the person wants to get access to your property against your wishes, he or she has to go to a magistrate to get, for want of a better phrase, an exemption from that legal protection of your property. Now, the civil matter is the amount of money involved, but that's not what the access is given under. It's a civil reason for doing it, but it's a criminal matter that they're dealing with at the magistrate's court, the right to break into your property.
Well, isn't that warrant supposed to be signed by an individual magistrate in wet ink?
In what?
Wet ink.
Wet ink?
Yeah, it's supposed to be ink from a pen that a magistrate signs off the warrant.
I have no idea whether they have to do it with wet ink. I suspect they merely have to have the decision made.
Well, there's been quite a few. This all goes back to like the poll tax and the repossession of mortgages, buildings from the people who own the properties.
Mm-hmm.
It's under the same civil law that agents were granted access under the civil law to gain access to the properties.
Why do you keep saying they were granted access under the civil law?
Because they used the civil law to gain access to the
Which
person's
civil law
property.
was it? Tell me the civil law. You seem very concerned, very clear that it was a civil law. Tell me, what civil law was it? Was it a law passed by Parliament?
It was a law passed by Parliament under the Mortgages Act and what have you.
Mm-hmm. And the Mortgages Act gives the person the right to get their money back, if you like, if you're not paying, if you break the contract, if you're not paying or what have you, then yes, they have the right to turf you out of that property. But they have to get magistrate's approval to do so.
And that was where they used the civil law to gain access via a magistrate's court to turf you out of the property.
So what's the relevance of whether it's criminal or straightforward civil? It's irrelevant. They merely have to get.
It's all part of the same act, but the poll tax was used under the same influence. That it was a criminal offence, but it was under civil law that the action was brought into fruition.
So what point are you making? I'm having
what I'm making is
understanding the relevance of which branch of law the permission is given. A magistrate's court is required to give the permission under the relevant legislation. But what matters is they have access to your property when you don't want them to.
Yeah, which was produced by the establishment, the government.
That's where laws are made.
Yeah, so like it's a bit critical for the MPs in Parliament to now stand up and say this is a disgrace that these people were allowed access into these people's personal abodes.
Well, they're not saying it's a disgrace. The MPs that are saying it is happening are saying it is happening without proper challenge. In other words, the energy companies, or at least their agents, the debt collectors, are turning up at the magistrates' court with a wadge 3 inches thick and say, give us those, and the magistrates appear, the allegation goes, are just nodding them through without examination. So that's what's the disgrace, that the decision to do it is wrong, and some MPs believe that the law that allows the gas companies to disconnect somebody is also wrong. Some MPs think it should be the same as water. The water companies cannot disconnect your supply.
But they're using the law for an agent to gain access to the property.
Well, they have to use the law.
But they invented the law. The government, the MPs invented the laws.
Well, maybe
to give
they
agents
did.
access to the properties.
But not once a law is passed, that doesn't mean that every single member of Parliament thinks it was a cracking idea. They may well have been members of Parliament who said, no, we're against it. But it goes on the balance. So the balance is that the majority voted for it, so it goes through. And then when it is abused, as the allegation is that it's being right now, then those who didn't vote it through say, yeah, books, we told you so. Now get it sorted, because you were wrong.
Well, this is what the members of the public have been saying to the MPs for the last 30-odd years, when they use the law to repossess a person's abode and to make the payment of the poll tax a civil offence rather than a criminal law, but used access to the property under civil law through the agents.
And?
It's all part of the establishment using the process where the police have stood by on many occasions when mortgage repossessions have gone ahead.
Yes,
and
they
said,
have.
And they've stood there to make sure there is no breach of the peace.
Correct.
By the person who is being evicted.
Oh, well, they're there to prevent a breach of the peace. Some people interpret that.
Hello?
The fact that they use the courts to gain access to people's property and says it goes back to the days of the poll tax. Of course, it goes back a lot further than that in some cases. The right of access and debt collectors and the like have been around for a very, very long time. William, do you want to just finalise, because we cut you off mid-sentence because of the electronics, but would you like to just finalise your point of view so that you don't feel like you've been cheated?
No, that was what I wanted to say, Mr. Beswick, and thank you for the continuation of such a good programme and what have you, and all your staff who have done such an excellent job.
Excellent. Well, thank you. I'm sorry to keep you waiting just for that, but thank you for your call. Have a good night. William, Aldo, Ty.
Good morning, Mr. Beswick. How are you going on?
Good morning. I'm all right, Ty.
Good. I don't need to remember, we spoke about 5 years ago.
I don't.
When we spoke about rock and roll, and you kindly played Willie Nelson, not Willie Nelson, Wee Willie Harris for me.
Good Lord. Okay, well, all right. What would you like to talk about now?
Eddie, I just wanted to touch on the rock and roll again. I thought, I'd try and lighten things up a little bit.
Okay.
About 5 years ago, we spoke about the rock and roll, everything else. I'm a 19-year-old lad that were into rock and roll. 5 years on, we're still into it. Various things like that, and I just think it's brilliant to see that this new Elvis film that they brought out has brought a new generation of Elvis fans and rock and roll fans into the scene, if you know what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. Historically, the rock and roll scene was people of a certain age, and now they've brought this new film out. It really has just brought everybody back into it. It's brought a whole new lease of life to 50s music, not just Elvis, but everything that comes with it. Little Richard, Chuck Berry, everything.
I watched a tribute a few weeks back now, but I think, about 10 days ago. I watched a tribute to Tommy Steele, who, of course, was you might say, the early rock and roller, wasn't he? Back in the day. He seemed awfully mild compared to some of the ones that followed him.
Oh, yeah. Tell you, there were a few greats, weren't there? I mean, Thomas Steele really, he was British rock and roll. He started it up. Well, he was.
Yeah, he was billed as the British Elvis, wasn't he? At that club in that coffee shop in London.
What was it called? The 21 bar, was it?
The 21 or something like that. Yeah.
21 Club or something like that. I vaguely remember a few years back there was a fella called Rocky Ricky, and he sang in there. And when he was singing there, he served Wee Willie Harris with a cup of coffee.
Hey, marvellous.
When we see Wee Willie Harris a few years later, when he was in his 70s, Rocky Ricky did the same again. He served him with a cup of coffee.
Jolly good. See, I mean, rock and roll, it's fantastic music. I'm not keen, because I'm an old git, I'm not keen on the way the kids have taken it, but let's be honest, it's theirs to take.
Oh, of course, yeah, I totally agree. I mean, we were talking about some work, and obviously me being, sort of in my 20s, there's a big range of what I like and what other people like. And we were talking about how rock and roll had influenced others, and how it has become, rock and roll was a start, and how it's become to what it is today, and they've taken it as they will, as you say. But I mean, it weren't just that. I mean, there was the Billy Fury event at the Cavern, only a few weeks back, where I think it was marking his 40th anniversary of his death, was it?
Yeah, something like that. There's a statue to him on the waterfront at Liverpool.
That's right, correct, yes, there is, yeah.
He did a film called I Had a Horse, or I Bought a Horse, or something. Billy Fury.
Something along that. Was it in that film that he sang Play It Cool?
Oh, now you've got me, because I never did see the film. I just remember the story about him doing it.
I think he might have sang that in the one, but he did a film with Ringo Starr, didn't he, a few years later?
Maybe so. I don't know enough about him. I just remember that film, I Got a Horse.
Yeah. I mean,
his big song was Halfway to Paradise, wasn't it? Halfway to Paradise, so near, yet so far away. Happy days. Only he could sing it. Unlike me.
Actually, I wish I could sing it just like him.
It's not bad, is it? He did have a good voice.
It was a talent to have. I mean, there were so many great rock and roll stars that come from England. Yeah. I mean, it didn't just start. It came from rock and roll. It went into the 60s. It went into the Mersey beats, didn't it? You had the Beatles and so forth. You know, and it's for myself. I think it's just amazing to just see how music has come such a long way. And I've always been in the 50s, and I've drifted into the 60s, and I've enjoyed the 60s music and a bit of the country music and things like that. And it's amazing to see how it has influenced modern music today without people even knowing.
But that's the thing about music, isn't it? It is, and I don't mean this in the offensive sense of this term, but it sort of sneaks about. It's evocative. You know, you hear a riff. I'm not a musician. You hear a riff, and you think, I can do something with that, and you change it a bit or a lot, and it just you get it through your skin almost. Music.
Oh, totally agree. Yeah, I mean, it's a bit like fashion, isn't it? You know, it sort of just keeps coming round. If you know what I'm saying. You know, you just get a little bit, and then all of a sudden it comes back round, and then they remake it and they make it their own. And I mean, it's absolutely fabulous. I mean, you listen to some of the 60s hits from the Beatles, and you can still hear it in modern day music, them guitar riffs and different things like that. And I just think it's absolutely brilliant to see. And this new film that they've brought back out now, they brought I forget her name. Was it Big Mama Cassie? Was it that sang Hound Dog or something like that? Yeah. Yes. She sung Hound Dog, didn't she? And they've remade it just recently.
Have they?
And as part of this film, they've done it. I think that's a song. I might be wrong, but I think that's a song, and they've remade it, and it's come back round. Me and a friend of mine, we've got completely different tastes in music, and we've got completely different tastes in life, really. And we decided to go on holiday together, and we're sat in the airport waiting to go, and he put this record on, and he says, "Oh, you've got to listen to this. He said, it's amazing. And he's telling me all about this record. He put it on, and it was "Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog." But it'd been remixed, and I couldn't believe it. I was blown away.
Presley's breakthrough tongue.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Fabulous. Well,
Yeah,
stick with the rock and roll, Ty. You'll not go far wrong, but good to hear from you again. Have a good night. I'll do Stuart.
Hey, okay?
Very well, thanks.
Yeah, I just wanted to call about, obviously, this missing person thing, which obviously I'm not going to talk about the actual case. I want to talk mainly about the actual river, because I spent a bit of time out there as a kid. I used to go on bike rides, and it's quite a long river, because it sort of goes up into Skiphole, and it eventually comes around sort of under the Shard Bridge. It eventually comes out into the Fleetwood Sea, which I think the Fleetwood Sea is part of the Irish Sea, isn't it? I think.
I would imagine so.
Yeah, but the actual river itself, from when I used to sort of, I just want to talk about the river, nothing else. When I used to play around there, as a kid, the main concern was the sinking sand. There was a hell of a lot of sinking mud around it, sinking sand, sinking mud, whatever you want to call it, because I got stuck in it once. There's a lot of, where the river is, there's a lot of parts of it where on the embankment it's like sinking mud, because I got stuck in it once. It was like past my knees. You had to get the fire brigade out to pull me out the bleeding thing. I was only a kid, so it was sucking me down. But the actual river itself, it wasn't so much the water that was a concern when I was a kid. It was always stay away from the sinking sand, because the actual river itself, the point where she's allegedly fallen into it, it's quite narrow, but a lot of the river line's narrow, but it slowly opens up and becomes wider and wider and wider until it goes into the big opening of the Fleetwood Sea. But the point where she's gone in, allegedly got fallen in, it's a very narrow part of the river, and it's almost like a canal. It's not a fast, free-flowing river. It's quite still, the water in that area. But that's just my experience of the River Wyre, really. The main concern when I used to hang around there as a kid was don't go near the sinking sand, more so than the water. But yeah, that was just really what I wanted to say on that, because everyone's saying it's a fast, free-flowing river. My experience around there, it's not. It's not like say the River Irwell in Manchester. There's parts of that are pretty. It's quite an aggressive current on the River Irwell. It runs all the way to Manchester City Centre from Ramsbottom. It's quite a fast-flowing river, but this River Wyre is not like that. It's not fast-flowing. So everyone seems to be saying it's a fast-flowing river, but it's not. From my experience of hanging around it, which is I spent a lot of time around it as a kid on my bike. So yeah, that was all I wanted to say really about the matter. Hello? Hello? Can you hear me?
internet decided it wanted to play silly beggars again with Stuart, who was telling a bit of his history of the River Wye, which, as he rightly says, is quite a long river and spits out effectively in Morecambe Bay. We're back with you, Stuart. Just if I could rush you a little, because of losing signal, we've got quite a lot of people waiting. So, your views?
Yeah. You should be sponsored by Gizmo this show tonight. Gremlins. No, I'll just say I'm experiencing the River Wyre. It's quite a long river. I'll just quickly go over it. But it's not. A lot of people saying a lot of people speculating it's a fast, free-flowing river. But my experience of it isn't. The times that I hung around it as a kid, people were more concerned about the sinking sand, which is on a lot of the embankments of the River Wyre. I actually got stuck in the sinking sand once as a kid. But it's more the water, which I've been in it myself. It's not, from the areas I've been in it as a kid playing around there, it's not got a real strong current or fast flow, and it's almost like a canal, large parts of it. It's very still.
There must be parts of it that are quite busy. Of course, it depends on the gradient at the time. But it must be. We have a river near us, and it is from time to time quite flowing, and at other times it's a little puddle, basically a moving puddle. So it must be that way. But yeah, they don't know what has happened. But all they know is that that's the best guess at the moment. I know they shouldn't be guessing, but that's all you can do, isn't it, really? But I've just been looking at aerial photos of it now, and there are places where it's very wide and then places where it's very narrow. And, of course, where it's very narrow, it may well be that at that point the water is much faster.
Yeah, maybe so. I mean... Just my experience of being around it, it's always more the sinking sand that was more of a worry for people in the area, not so much that's the water itself. But just my kind of experience. But there's a 10-minute window. They're saying there's a 25 minute to 30-minute window. So in that period of time, she would have had to travel at a pretty decent speed if she had fallen in it. In that 20-minute window.
I think it could be,
I'm not sure how we ended up out to Fleetwood.
A lot can happen in 20 minutes, but let's not speculate any more about the particular circumstances, because the family have got enough to contend with. But Stuart, good to hear from you. Thank you very much. 0800 218 2255. How do David?
Hello, Alan. Good evening. Just a quick one regards the gentleman who rang about Captain Scarlet before.
Oh, go on.
It was actually a man-made mission to Mars. It was a Zero-X mission, and the humans are actually the aggressors. So they went to Mars, and it was after they received radio signals, and they went there, they explored Mars, they found a Martian colony, and they thought the Martians were being aggressive. They blew up the Martian colony, and right before their eyes, the colony just reappeared. And due to the Martians' powers of regeneration, yeah. It was retro metabolization, I think it was called. It was reverse matter.
It's a great name, isn't it?
Yeah, which basically makes them indestructible. So in the first episode, the humans were the aggressors, and the Mistrons, the Martians, basically they vowed a war of nerves on the humans, and that's basically what set the whole series up.
Right. Well, as long as puppets were dying, it's okay by me. Thank you very much, David. How do Naim?
How do Alan? Hello?
Hello, what do you want to talk about, Naim?
How are you, Alan? Alan, I was just wondering, I'm hearing a lot about this. Well, I've been hearing about it since I was a little kid, that, the rich aren't doing enough or rich aren't doing anything for us. I was just wondering, why should the rich do anything for anybody? Like,
it depends who you ask, and it depends how they got rich.
Well, I'll sorry, if you just give me 1 minute. I know you're very short on time. I used to work at a takeaway when I was much younger. I used to get paid $3.50 an hour, right? No names mentioned. I got fed up of that wage in the 6 months. Then I perfected my skills, perfected my techniques. So I became a head chef. So I went out, applied for a better job. Then I started getting paid £20 an hour because I became really good at what I did. I put extra hard work into it. I put dedication into it. I put a lot of labour into it, a lot of thinking into it. So the poor sod that got my former job, who's on $3.50 an hour now, for argument's sake, why do I owe him anything? I'm getting paid £20 an hour.
You don't owe him anything, but if we had a system whereby people progressed and had no responsibility to the people who they left behind, then we have a very selfish society, because you presumably had an education, somebody paid for that, and it wasn't you, I guess. If you break your leg, you'll go to the NHS, and the person that mends your leg will be paid probably, I guess, again, not by you.
By the taxpayer, of course.
So we are a social society, and we have social obligations to those in need, whether that need is to have their broken legs set, or whether that need is that they are unfortunately unable to get a job. Unlike you, they don't have the skills to be able to progress in the way that you have, but they're still entitled.
Sorry, Alan, sorry, if I can just stop you there for one moment. Sorry, I do apologise. Again,
as stroppy as you like.
I'm a people's person myself, right? During the COVID time, the statistics show UK produced 170 billionaires, right? During the COVID period, that 2 years, right? Then people, we have the same access to information as they do. Does that make sense? What they did was they bought shares in all the companies, because all the shares had dropped to virtually zero. So when these places reopened, their shares skyrocketed. They made the money. Like, for argument's sake,
how many of those billionaires buying those bucket shares, as it were, how many of them do you think were doing a job that paid £3.50 an hour? Many?
Sorry. This is exactly this is the exact point I was going to get to, Alan. I do apologise. I know you're very short on time.
We're there now, so we've got to the point. Yeah. Go on.
The thing is, then I got fed up of doing a job, a paid job. So I thought, you know what, I want to start up my own business. Honestly, I had zero funds in my account, nothing. And what I did was I went to an outlet. I'm not going to mention, again, I know I'm not allowed to mention names. I went to an outlet. I bought, women's hair clips. I'm getting them on a deal, 3 for £1. Does that make sense? Online, on an online sales website, I was selling each one for £7 plus postage packaging. Does that make sense? So I spent £1.
They're just numbers. Numbers always make some kind of sense. But again, this is what you did. You have an entrepreneurial mind, and that's good. Not everybody does.
No, but this is the thing. Exactly. This is my point, Alan. The thing is, in the last 5 years, I made serious amounts of money. And I'm not saying I'm rich by any means, don't get me wrong. I'm just another working class person. I come from a working class society. I come from actually a very poor society. But the thing is, because I've made all that money now, right? Now I've got a big house to myself, I've got a nice car, etc., etc. I've got all these things. Why do I owe anybody anything? I work for these things, though.
Well,
I have the same information. I have the same access to the information that everybody else does.
Naim, you do have the same information as everybody else. You comprehend that information, and this society of ours enables you to make the profits that you make, and that's a good thing.
Of course.
But we are still a society. Now, you're of the view, I did it, so screw the lot of you. To which I say, you're entitled to that view.
No.
Yeah. You said we didn't have a lot of time. Good night, Naim. Good night. Go and spend your bloody money. How do, John?
Oh, good morning, Alan.
Good morning.
Hope you're well.
I am. You've got 20 seconds, John.
I'll ring back next week then.
All right, then we'll look forward to that. Then, Anthony, you've got 20 seconds. How do?
Okay, right then. I've got to be brief. My mum taught Billy Fury how to tune a guitar.
Right.
Used to go round to my nan's house. But this is a question for the next week. My mum taught him how to tune a guitar by using a piano, an old Victorian piano.
Right.
God knows how people do that.
I have no idea. I wouldn't know where to start. I know a guitar's got some knobs on the end that you tighten the strings, and that's the end of my knowledge. Anthony, it's been good hearing from you, along with everybody else. We didn't get to Alec or Gary. I've been busy.
We're the BBC News at 1 o'clock. This is Jason Kay. The head teacher at one of the UK's leading private schools, Epsom College in Surrey, has been found dead alongside the bodies of her husband and daughter. An investigation has begun into how Emma Patterson and her family died, but police believe it was an isolated incident with no one else involved. Tens of thousands of nurses and ambulance workers in England will go on strike in the morning in the biggest NHS walkout of this winter's pay dispute. They'll be joined by some ambulance workers in Wales, although most health unions there have suspended their action after an improved pay offer from the Welsh Government. The former Conservative Cabinet Minister Teresa Villiers says that pay rises linked to inflation will keep prices rising faster for longer.
I do wish that everyone who is taking strike action would think carefully about the impact. And I would like to see Labour colleagues condemn these strikes because, as I say, we all want a resolution of these issues. We all want to see the public sector paid more. But I think these strikes are deeply damaging, not least at a time when the NHS is already struggling to clear its backlogs from COVID.
Lancashire police say a private underwater search and recovery company will try to help them find Nicola Bully, who went missing late last month. The 45-year-old was last seen walking her dog next to the River Wyre in St Michael's on Wyre. Earlier, one of her friends shared images taken of her on the day she disappeared. Danny Savage reports.
The images, first obtained by the BBC, show Nicola Bully loading up her car for the school run. They were taken from a CCTV camera on the outside of her family home, less than an hour before she vanished. They show her wearing a three-quarter-length coat, dark-coloured jeans, long walking socks and ankle-length green wellies. Police believe she accidentally fell in the River Wyre, but no evidence of a fall and no trace of Nicola Bully have yet been found.
There's been some British success in the early categories of the biggest awards in music, the Grammys in Los Angeles. Ozzy Osbourne has picked up 2 awards for Best Metal Performance and Best Rock Album, and Wet Leg have won Best Alternative Music Performance and Best Alternative Music Album. The main awards will be battled out later by artists including Beyoncé and Adele. The deputy music editor of the entertainment newspaper Variety, Jem Aswad, says Grammys are the top awards in the business.
There's only one Grammy Awards. It is the absolute peak of achievement in the music world. There is absolutely nothing like it. You know, the Brit Awards are great. The American Music Awards are cool. There's nothing like a Grammy. Now, award shows in general have lost a lot of their luster with the decline of network television. But it's, you know, to a musician, it's still the ultimate thing.
Tottenham's captain, Harry Kane, has become the club's highest scorer. He notched up his 267th goal for the club